I seem often to have to use our time together to go over old business, for which I apologize, but such is the responsiveness of the department. I wanted to talk to you about Charles McGonigal today. He's an FBI agent who is interesting in two respects. First, he's pleading guilty, or has pled guilty, to offenses regarding his undisclosed receipt of $225,000 from a foreign national, and he awaits sentencing for the crimes to which he pled coming up in February. The second interesting thing is that he led the New York Counterintelligence Division during the time that it was widely reported that New York FBI agents and former New York U.S. Attorney Rudy Giuliani were pressuring Director Comey to intervene in the Hillary Clinton campaign and do it damage, which, as we unfortunately know, Director Comey did with press conferences that violated DOJ rules and procedures. So my experience is that when somebody is in the pre-sentencing mode of a criminal plea, that's a very good time to get information from them and cooperation from them. I don't know what happened in the New York field office during that period, but there's a very good chance that McGonigal does. I'll put into the record three letters. One is me to Attorney General Garland, February 7th, asking about this. The second is Office of Legislative Affairs at DOJ back to me, giving something of an answer to this. And the third is a letter off DOJ's website reflecting the plea agreement between the Southern District of New York and the attorneys for Charles McGonigal. So at this point, what I asked in the letter was that somebody independent of the FBI take a look to see if there were FBI shenanigans during that period in that office. And I've received no confirmation that anything is going on. The plea agreement reflects no signal or sign of cooperation, which, as you know, is often a feature in plea agreements and sentencings. So there's no sign that he was asked to cooperate outside of the plea. I have been unable to determine whether or not the Inspector General is even eyeballing this to see if somebody independent from the FBI, somebody in the department, should take a look. What do you know of the status of this, and are you, would it make sense? Would it not make sense, let me put it that way, to have an independent set of eyeballs have a look at what McGonigal knows about what took place in that office at that time, while he is in this helpful position of being subject to sentencing?
Well, Senator, I appreciate you raising the topic. So a couple things. First, our counterintelligence division, of course, are the people who identified McGonigal's wrongdoing, pursued it, arrested him, and are very focused on trying to determine, in all the ways you would imagine, what, if anything, he might have impacted through his misconduct. That's one. Second, there are, I think, two U.S. Attorney's offices involved, both New York, Southern District of New York, and I think the District of Columbia as well. So two cases that are pre-sentencing, and that his cooperation, if you will, could be potentially relevant to. And we are, I can tell you, I want to be a little bit careful how far I can go on this, but I will tell you we have involved the Inspector General as well. Because we, like you, want to make sure we understand the full scope of what Mr. McGonigal did and what he knows.
So the DOJ Inspector General is involved,
Is
or has
involved.
been notified?
It has been
Engaged with?
Engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Let's go back to 702 for a moment. I understand that 702, which was originally designed sort of for a counterterrorism purpose, has also been deployed against the international fentanyl trafficking apparatus. Is that correct? And has 702 been important in combating the international fentanyl trafficking apparatus?
702 has been important in the fight against the scourge of fentanyl, more so, I would say, by our intelligence community partners, the CIA, for example, in their work overseas to pursue some of the foreign dimensions of the fentanyl crisis, which of course then have massive ramifications for communities all over the United States.
So that's a success of 702.
It is a success of 702.
You also mentioned the role of 702 in reaching out to victims of crime, of potential foreign intelligence operations. Could you elaborate in our last minute together a little bit more on the role of 702 in supporting the government's role in letting Americans and American companies find out that they are the victims or have been the victims of criminal and intelligence attacks and helping them work through the consequences as victims?
Well, in the short time we have, what I would say is 702, especially the ability to run queries on IP addresses, email addresses, things like that, is statistically right now the biggest place in which it's used is cyber attacks. So victims, overwhelmingly victims of Russian, Iranian, Chinese, others, cyber attacks here in the United States, 702 is what allows us to figure out which company is being targeted, maybe what the entry point is, where the bad guys are going, and allows us to then, armed with that information, rush out to those companies and alert them so that they can take steps to mitigate it before it gets potentially exponentially worse. And we find that there are a lot of instances where we're coming to companies who didn't even know they'd been breached yet, and if we hadn't had 702, both they and we would have been unwitting.
If you could share with us some actual instances, make this a question for the record. Obviously, you have to do some scrubbing to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the information being released. But I think the more we can know about actual ways in which actual individuals, even if they have to be anonymized, were helped and we see the factual circumstances, that would be useful. Thank you. Thanks, Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. Senator Grassley.
You testify